Perhaps everyone has heard the saying, if you want peace of mind, just buy a new car, or at least stick with a familiar name like the Camry. But whether that's always true in every situation is a different story. When the budget is only around $5,000, many people automatically assume that smoothness, reliability, and that easy-to-live-with feeling are simply out of reach. Have you ever wondered whether a very inexpensive sedan, if chosen correctly, could deliver experiences that people usually have to pay thousands more for in a Camry? Let's discuss this topic in today's video. There's a truth that's a bit hard to accept. The Camry hasn't become worse, it has become aimed at a different audience. And that change didn't happen overnight, it happened quietly, generation by generation, until one day you walk into a dealership, look around, and feel something strange. That familiar nameplate no longer seems to speak the same language to you. In the past, the Camry was built for the classic American middle-class family. It was a car you bought to keep for a long time, 10 years, 15 years if possible. It was serviced at the neighborhood garage, where the mechanic knew your name, remembered what was replaced last time, and didn't need to plug in a computer to know how the car was feeling. Technology wasn't the priority. What mattered was whether the engine would last, whether the transmission was easy to repair, and whether long-term costs were predictable. That Camry didn't try to impress, it didn't need to. It existed to serve everyday life, and it did that job well enough that people almost forgot it was there in a good way. Today's Camry, however, is born into a very different world. A world where a car doesn't just need to drive well, but also needs to score well on paper. Fuel efficiency, emissions, mandatory technologies, all unavoidable requirements. And when priorities shift from built to last to meeting standards, the manufacturing philosophy has to change. The goal is no longer how the car feels after 10 years of ownership, but how it feels during a few minutes of a test drive. It needs to look modern under showroom lights, feel quiet and smooth when new, and give buyers the sense that they're stepping into the future. As for what happens 10 years later, honestly, that's no longer the focus. The result is that modern cars are lighter, use thinner materials, and are optimized for mass production rather than long-term repairability. Not because manufacturers are cheap, but because that's the only way to survive within the current system. A $5,000 sedan does not appear here as an option chosen out of financial necessity. In fact, most people who seriously consider this route are perfectly capable of spending more. They simply no longer see a reasonable justification for paying tens of thousands of dollars extra for things they don't fully use, don't need, or, in some cases, don't even want to deal with. This is not a passive decision, but a very deliberate one. Deliberately keeping money in your pocket, deliberately controlling costs, and deliberately choosing long-term peace of mind over short-lived flashiness. The concept of cheap, therefore, needs to be redefined. The purchase price is just a number. What matters more is the total cost of ownership over the years, and, most importantly, the sense of confidence every time you turn the key. A properly chosen $5,000 sedan doesn't force you to pay for technology that's only used during the first few months, and it doesn't make you trade simplicity for a showroom experience that lasts exactly one afternoon. One major advantage of cars in this price range is that they have already passed through the riskiest phase of their life cycle. Depreciation. The silent enemy of new car buyers is almost no longer present. New cars lose value year by year, month by month, sometimes mile by mile. A $5,000 sedan is different. Its value hit the market floor long ago. Driving another few tens of thousands of miles won't keep you up at night because the car is no longer evaporating money every time it leaves the driveway. That changes the ownership mindset completely. You drive the car instead of constantly thinking about resale value. More importantly, the durability of these cars isn't found in brochures or advertisements. It's proven in reality. The weak ones were filtered out long ago. What remains on the road today are models that have survived time, multiple owners, and all kinds of real-world conditions. They are no longer potentially durable, but durable in practice. For older drivers, This creates a very different feeling. You know which systems typically need attention. You know when to check them, and unexpected cost shocks become far less common. Because of that, $5,000 sedans are largely free of the hidden cost traps that make many people wary of modern cars. Parts are widely available, with multiple options. Mechanics are familiar with them and don't need proprietary equipment or complex procedures. Most importantly, you're not locked into a dealer ecosystem. You have the freedom to choose where the car is serviced, the freedom to postpone non-urgent items, and the freedom to plan long-term expenses on your own terms. Older sedans were designed with a very old-fashioned but realistic assumption. People spend a lot of time inside their cars. Seats didn't need to look good in advertisements. Cushions were thicker, backrests wider, less aggressively contoured but more supportive. The seating position was upright and natural, not restrictive, especially comfortable for spines that have worked hard for decades. Long drives don't leave you sore. It's not something you notice immediately, but it's something you remember clearly after every extended trip. The suspension tells the same story. No one designed it to score points on sharp cornering tests. Springs were softer, dampers focused on absorbing the road, prioritizing comfort over a sharp steering feel. These cars don't argue with potholes or try to prove anything. Combined with smaller wheels and taller tire sidewalls, the car simply stops reminding you that you're driving. Less vibration, less noise, and most importantly, less fatigue, mile after mile. Modern Camrys are different. They're tighter, stiffer, and constantly make you feel like you're driving. That may sound appealing, until you realize that driving often means sustained tension. After a few hours, the seats begin to feel uncomfortably thin, and the road never fully disappears from your body. For people who travel long distances, and for knees, necks, and backs that no longer bounce back like they did in their 20s, this difference is significant. It can be decisive. In terms of mechanical durability, new cars make many promises. Good older cars don't promise they've already proven themselves. Naturally, aspirated engines don't need to impress you. There are no turbochargers working constantly, no layers of overlapping auxiliary systems, just steady power delivery, predictable responses, and internal components that aren't under constant stress. Fewer electronics doesn't mean outdated. It means fewer things can fail at the same time. And when something does go wrong, it's easier to diagnose, easier to explain, and easier to fix without specialized dealer-only equipment. Traditional geared automatic transmissions are the same way. They're not trendy, but they've logged hundreds of thousands of miles in real owners' hands, not in test labs. Proven here isn't a marketing phrase, it's usage history and the accumulated experience of independent shops that have seen the same issues often enough to know exactly how to address them. A new Camry drives very well when it's new, no one denies that. What gives experienced owners pause is what happens later, when systems begin aging together rather than individually. For those who value certainty over novelty, that uncertainty is a meaningful drawback. Ownership costs are where the reality becomes clearest. A $5,000 sedan has already faced the greatest enemy of any car: depreciation. Its value has stabilized and no longer disappears with every additional 1,000 miles. That completely changes how ownership feels. You no longer sense money vanishing day by day. Insurance reflects that reality. Premiums are lower, required coverage is simpler, and there's no need to overprotect an asset that has already settled into its place. Taxes and fixed costs are simpler too, without technology surcharges or bundled services. You're not paying for features you don't fully use, or for things that will be outdated before you've even grown accustomed to them. With a new Camry, by contrast, you're not just paying for transportation. You're paying for layers of technology designed to be replaced, not repaired, and you're also paying psychologically, worrying about scratches, updates, and keeping the car looking new even as that feeling fades quickly. For retirees or those who manage their budgets carefully, the difference isn't just in the numbers, it's in the peace of mind. If you're still wondering which type of sedan to choose, this is likely the section you've been waiting for. The answer is the Lexus ES. The Lexus ES is not the cheapest car you can buy for $5,000. It's also not a rare or collectible model. Its value lies elsewhere. It serves as a very clear benchmark for direct comparison with the Camry, because, at their core, these two cars come from the same philosophy. Both are family sedans. Both prioritize smoothness, comfort, and stability. The difference lies in how they were treated during the manufacturing process. The Camry, as a mass-market car, has always lived under cost-cutting pressure. Every new generation is a cost equation that must be solved. The Lexus ES is different. In its early years, when the brand was still building its reputation, Lexus was allowed to overbuild. More material, more thickness, more care in finishing. Not to show off technology, but to prove that the car could last for a very long time. That period produced ES models that truly reflect the qualities buyers value. They don't need to impress you the first time you open the door. They impress you after several years of use, when everything still works smoothly, when the cabin remains quiet, and when the car doesn't constantly remind you that it's getting old. Sound insulation is often the first thing that makes people recognize the real value of an older Lexus ES. Thick insulating materials and solid construction create a space clearly separated from the outside world. At highway speeds, the car isn't noisy, doesn't vibrate, and doesn't force the driver to tense up to stay focused. On long highway trips, this isn't a luxury, it's very practical comfort. Daily driving in the ES also embodies that easy-to-live-with character. The engine responds smoothly, without abruptness. The transmission shifts so seamlessly that you often don't even notice it. Everything happens gently, without pressure, without demanding constant attention. For someone who has been driving for decades, this is exactly the kind of behavior that feels familiar, reassuring, and makes the driver feel in control of the car, not the other way around. Build quality is another area where many mainstream cars today struggle to compete. Older ES interiors use thicker materials that feel solid to the touch. Interior noises and small rattles are far less likely to appear over time. This creates a very specific sensation. The car retains its new character longer not because it doesn't age, but because it ages gracefully. If the Camry of the past had been allowed to be built better, without being constrained by short product cycles and constant cost pressure, it might have come very close to what the Lexus ES represents. The ES feels like the image of an ideal Camry, where comfort and durability are given absolute priority. Ownership feels different as a result. You don't feel the need to baby the car or worry about every small scratch. The car exists to be used, not displayed or preserved for resale. That creates a sense of mental relief that many people only recognize after going through several new cars. Of course, an older Lexus ES is not perfect, and it shouldn't be bought in a rush. The right approach is slow and level-headed without being distracted by shiny appearances or mileage numbers alone. What matters is consistent maintenance history, how wear items have been addressed, and whether the car still feels smooth and stable to drive. These aren't warnings, they're simply the steps needed for the car to deliver its full value. When chosen properly, an older Lexus ES becomes an exceptionally dependable option. It has a clear character, a proven track record, and is especially well-suited for those who want a quiet, smooth sedan without unpleasant financial surprises. First, to be fair, one thing needs to be said clearly. New cars aren't at fault. New technology isn't a scheme designed to extract money from consumers. Higher safety standards, lower fuel consumption, and increasingly complex assistance systems all come from the demands of the era. No automaker spends billions of dollars just to make things more complicated, at least not intentionally. But the real issue lies elsewhere. The question has never been whether a car is good or bad. The real question is who it was built for, and whether the person holding the keys truly belongs to that group. Modern cars today are designed very specifically for a certain type of user. People who change cars regularly, people who enjoy novelty, and people who accept entering a new spending cycle every few years in exchange for the latest features introduced at recent launches. That's a perfectly reasonable choice for the right audience. The problem is that this profile doesn't reflect the typical driver who has been behind the wheel for 3 or 4 decades. These are people who have seen enough innovation and enough promises to know one thing very clearly. What they actually need matters far more than what others say they should want. When you look at how different generations buy cars, the contrast becomes obvious almost immediately. For younger buyers, a car is an experience. Does the design follow trends? Is the screen big enough? Does it feel modern? Those are the central questions. And they accept a simple reality. They'll change cars in a few years. And the lost value is the price of staying current. For older buyers, the logic is almost reversed. The question is rarely how new is this car, but rather how easy is this car to live with? Does it create unnecessary worries? Does it disrupt habits formed over decades behind the wheel? At this stage, many people are no longer interested in keeping up. They just want a car that does its job properly, getting them from point A to point B smoothly, familiarly, and without forcing the driver to constantly adapt to unnecessary changes. That's when the idea of choosing the right era becomes important. Cars, like many other products, have golden periods. There are times when technology is mature enough to deliver comfort, safety, and basic convenience, but hasn't yet been pushed into excessive complexity. There are times when mechanical systems are still clear and transparent, not buried under layers of software and hard-to-predict auxiliary systems. Many older sedans sit exactly at that intersection. They're modern enough to cruise comfortably on the highway, quiet enough for long trips, and smooth enough that the driver doesn't feel tense. At the same time, they're simple enough that repairs don't become a ritual requiring a return to a single place, with pricing that only becomes clear after the work is done. Choosing cars like this isn't turning your back on the present. It's simply refusing to chase things that aren't truly necessary, and refusing to pay for product life cycles that keep getting shorter. In the end, this isn't about saying that new cars or the Camry are the wrong choice. It simply offers a different way of thinking. Sometimes the true value of a car isn't in how much you pay for it, but in how it feels to live with every day. A $5,000 sedan, if chosen carefully, can deliver smoothness, familiarity, and peace of mind without the pressure of higher costs. What about you? At this stage, do you value newness or long-term simplicity? Finally, this video is created strictly for educational and informational purposes only. All observations and examples are based on publicly available information, manufacturer guidelines, owner documentation, and general automotive knowledge. Nothing in this video is intended to single out, criticize, compare unfairly, or promote any specific brand, model, or type of vehicle. Individual vehicles can vary widely depending on maintenance, usage, and driving conditions. And viewers are encouraged to consult official manuals and qualified professionals when making decisions. The goal here is simply to share practical, experience-based insights that may help drivers better understand automatic cars, think more clearly about ownership, and develop safer, more mindful driving habits. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.